Hello from a not so sunny San Francisco, where we are going to be putting two cars through their paces for the first time. On this side, we've got the Mustang Mach E GT, and on this side, we've got the Mustang Mach E GT Performance. Now, unlike the standard all-wheel drive Mach E, the GT version has a more powerful front motor. It combined produces 480 horses at the wheels, which is exactly the same as the Mustang Mach E GT Performance puts out. The difference, the Mustang Mach E GT Performance has more torque. This means that instead of the 3.8 second sprint time of the Mustang Mach E GT, the sprint time on this bad boy is 3.5 seconds. I've just left the place we're staying with the Mustang Mach E GT Performance. We're going past the US Coast Guard building, and the temptation is to squeeze the go pedal and see how quickly the car will go. So right now I'm going to turn on one pedal drive because I prefer one pedal driving. I'm also going to turn off the propulsion sound. Let's go back to our navigation so I know where we're going, because in about 8/10 of a mile we have to turn. But 8/10 of a mile is far enough to squeeze the go pedal, right? Oh yes, yes it is. Wow, that is instantaneous and very clear that you're driving a performance version of the Mustang Mach E. So let's talk about what it's like to drive the Ford Mustang Mach E GT Performance around town. Right now I've got the car in whisper mode, I've got the one pedal drive activated, I've turned off the propulsion sound so it doesn't egg me on to break the speed limit in town, and the car itself is very easy to drive in this mode. Because of electronics, because of the fact that this is an electric car, because motor control is literally bits and bytes in a piece of code somewhere, it's possible to get this performance behemoth to behave extremely civilized in an urban situation. And that leaves us with a very interesting concept, one that you can own a performance car as a performance car and take it out on twisty roads and absolutely hoon it, but then be able to drive it in towns. That's pretty special. I've got to say, single pedal driving really makes this car worthwhile because I don't have to worry about putting my foot on the brake. Wow, I've caught up to this Kia very quickly. I am trying to get this car to lose its grip and it doesn't seem to be wanting to. I'm going to just concentrate on driving for a bit, I think. It feels like the Mustang Mach E GT Performance is just a little bit more twitchy. Wow, it really, really picks up. I've been driving the Mustang Mach E GT now for about 45 minutes, and I took it on some very twisty roads and drove it quite briskly, and then promptly made myself feel sick. And that's not necessarily the best way to make yourself feel good about a car, is to drive it to the point that you're feeling slightly nauseous. And what does that tell me? Well, it tells me that this particular road that we're on is quite bumpy and there are lots of twists and turns, which not necessarily is great for trying to do pieces to camera. But it also shows me that this car is very capable of delivering a level of performance that most people don't need. And while there is definitely some machismo that comes from having the GT performance with its very sticky tyres and its very fancy suspension, I think your average Mustang Mach E driver is going to be just fine owning the regular Ford Mustang Mach E. So let's talk about the suspension on the Mustang Mach E GT Performance. It's got this MagnaRide suspension, which is a really clever technology, and how it works is it has the dampers filled with a fluid that can react to electromagnetism. And by changing the electromagnetic field around the damper, you can change the characteristics of the damper fluid inside it. This makes it possible to either stiffen up the suspension or soften the suspension when needed. So we've just switched out and I'm now driving the Mustang Mach E GT. So I don't know if I was just feeling a bit ill earlier when I got behind the wheel of the Mustang Mach E GT Performance, but this car feels very different. I mean, this still feels brisk, don't get me wrong. And there's only a few tenths of a second between the Mustang Mach E GT and the Mustang Mach E GT Performance. But the seat is much more comfortable for my plus-sized frame, especially when you adjust the lumbar support. This car feels much more sorted than the GT Performance. It feels like it's a better combination of power and refinement. And this feels like a much better vehicle for most people. And I think the difference here is akin to the difference between, say, the Model Y long range versus the Model Y performance. It feels like the Ford Mustang Mach E GT is a car that is capable of doing a pretty incredible stoplight sprint, but it's not so compromised as a car that driving along this beautiful road here is a problem. I want to have that acceleration, that power, that torque there for when I need it. So the question then becomes, should you buy the Mustang Mach E GT above the Mustang Mach E Premium? On paper, both the Premium and the Mach E GT get the same EPA range, and that's about 270 miles all in, which is what, 418 kilometers, thereabouts. So the range is about the same. You get more front-wheel drive power compared to the standard Mustang Mach E all-wheel drive. And of course you get a sportier interior. I think if you were someone who would like to have a solid roof, obviously this is an option for you, because the Mach E all-wheel drive Premium only comes with a glass roof, whereas this comes with a solid roof, which I think a lot of people would prefer to have. We're about to test out BlueCruise, which I cannot wait for. All right, let's pull out here. All right, everybody. Let's see if we can make this happen. I don't know if it's told me if I can do that yet. Here we go. Okay, BlueCruise it's just turned blue. I'm taking my hands off the wheel and the car is driving. I mean, look, my hands are up here. I could probably do the Macarena. As long as I look straight ahead and I'm looking around and I'm not looking down, this is remarkable. Let's talk about how this technology works. So there are scanners here that are basically tracking my eye movements. And look, I'm not holding the steering wheel. I'm looking straight ahead. I have a bottle in one hand. I'm holding this. And the car is doing all of the work for me. I'm just making sure that I'm looking around, that I'm keeping my eyes on the road ahead. And it's actually very good. This would make long distance travel so much less stressful. Oh, watch the road. I got a warning. That's the first time I got a warning. But it gives me the chance to have, you know, normal eye movement. So I can look at the mirror, I can look at the road ahead. If I look down at this, it would detect it. And if I kept my eyes pointing at the steering wheel, it would go, hey, you're not looking at the road ahead. So how does BlueCruise compare to Tesla's full self-driving beta program? Well, honestly, I couldn't tell you because I've not driven a full self-driving beta car. Tesla has the upper hand in some ways because you don't need to be driving on a fully mapped road in order to make use of full self-driving beta. Basically, if a Tesla can see the road ahead, then full self-driving beta will work. Now, Ford's system doesn't work in that way. It does require the road to be mapped. But based on my extremely brief time using BlueCruise, I think this technology is pretty darned impressive. Yesterday, when I drove the Ford Mustang Mach E GT Performance, I didn't really enjoy it because the road that we were on was very bumpy and I didn't feel like it showed the car to its proper full potential. But today we're going to autocross it. Let's do it. So they've put this car in unbridled extend, which gives you a chance to see how the car handles on a track-based situation. It gives you less maximum power, but it gives you more consistent lap times. And I've got to say, on the track, it's significantly better than I thought it was going to be. And get the back end to step out, and the car really does give you lots of feedback on the track. With this all-wheel drive train, this car is really giving you everything. You get up to sort of 50, 60 miles an hour on the straightaways, and the car is really allowing you to push it to its absolute limits. That's 60. So what do I think of the Mustang Mach E GT Performance on a track? I think it really grips well. Yesterday I didn't like this car on a regular road, and it felt too stiff, it felt too unyielding, it felt too troublesome. But on a track, pushing it to its absolute limit, that feels good. Thanks very much to Ford for letting us come along, and thanks to Ford for letting me say yesterday that I didn't really like the GT Performance all that much, and someone on the Ford team just smiled and said, well, wait until you get it on the autocross course. And I think they proved me wrong. Thanks on behalf of the entire TE crew, go out to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month Patreon supporters. Special thanks to our $50 a month patrons. That's David Janakula, Andrew Martin, Guido Drahoa, Brophy Wolf, Tazza and the Gong, Sean Ueda, Gordon C, Regine Fellows, Anonymous Freak, Jim Burness, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Ricky Leon, Brian Newton, Laura Sandbourne, Roy Litwin and Denny Hyde. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters. They are John Lyons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin, Matthew Drobnik, Christopher Jones, Paul Conway, Ellery Hennesley and Ian. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss out on our next episode. And please do the same to our 2 other channels too, Transport Evolved Shorts and Transport Evolved Take 2. Let us know what you thought below of this video. And if you don't want to put it in the YouTube comments because, you know, YouTube, then why not take it to our free to join Discord chat room? I will leave a link below. And also, if you have joined us on Patreon in the last couple of weeks and you've not been mentioned, know that we are very grateful for your support, but we've been out and about and we haven't had a chance to produce a new end credit. Don't forget too that you can support the channel through Patreon, Bitcoin and Ko-fi, and if you fancy some TE swag like the shirt I'm wearing right now, you'll find that at our TE swag store. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving.